Okay, 17th of Elul. The book is falling apart from use, Baruch Hashem. 17th of Elul. Excuse me. The Alter Rebbe himself was the regular Torah reader. Once he was away from Liozna on Shabbat Parshas Tovoi, which is when all the curses are made. And the Midler Rebbe, and the Midler Rebbe, then not yet bar mitzvah, heard the Torah reading from another. His anguish at the curses in the Toichia, the section of the rebuke, caused him so much heartache that in Yom Kippur, the Alter Rebbe doubted whether his son would be able to fast. When they asked the Midler Rebbe, "Don't you hear these curses every year?" He replied, "When Father reads, one hears no curses." Now that's a parable also, by the way, for us to take anything that appears to be negative and to meditate and contemplate. The saying of our sages that says, "Ein ra yored mishamayma." No evil comes down, no evil bad comes down from heaven. Everything is good. It's just that some good is camouflaged within a shell of darkness. And it's our job and our capability to see through the shell and see the toiv, the good in everything. And when the Alter Rebbe read the curses, that's what the Midler Rebbe saw. All right. Lessons in Tanya, volume 4 in this little section. Beginning a new chapter 50, Epistle 15. These are, remember, these are Geras HaKodesh. These are holy letters. Epistle 15. There's a lot in this English preface to it, but the actual text of it begins on the bottom of page 248. And in the Likutei Amorim, page Kuf Chaf Aleph, opposite page 240, chapter Tesavav 15. A brief prelude. This chapter is full of Kabbalistic and deep Hasidic concepts. And the Alter Rebbe writes about this later in Kutras Acharon, that understanding these concepts, although couched in very Kabbalistic terms and will need a fair amount of explanation for those who haven't really delved into this before, the Alter Rebbe says that contemplating and understanding, grasping these concepts is central to deepening one's love and fear of Hashem. So know that though the language we're going to use today is a language of what they call in English esoteric language, we want to at least grasp the sense of it enough so that we can get the feel. Now, the feel is based on the fact that we have been created in God's image, right? Nasa odem b'tzalmenu kedumoseinu. Let us create God in our image, in our form, which means that everything that we say about God has an application to ourselves. We are a holy people. You say that very glibly, right? The body of Israel, and the whole body, Klal Yisrael, is Kodesh, holy. Holy means that we have the holiness, the deep, deep separateness, which is the part that we've been calling Soiviv Kalalmim, the all-encompassing levels of God are invested within us. So we are walking Elokus, walking godliness. And this chapter begins to give us a more detailed understanding of what it means to be walking godliness, so to speak. So we'll start. And please do come off mute and ask questions here. It's a fairly short piece, but it's a fairly dense piece as well. Okay, we'll start. L'havin mashal emalitza divrei chachamim b'chidusom. So this is said in Mishlei. Mishlei is, Shlomo HaMelech wrote Mishlei. Mishlei means Proverbs, that's how they translate it. But a mashal. The whole Mishlei is a mashal. And the Torah itself, the whole of Torah is called Moshel HaKadmoini. Moshel HaKadmoini. The primordial Moshel. So everything, again, that we say about God is applicable to us. And everything we say about God, as Elul said, Job said, Mibesori exa elaka. From the way we are built, we can understand God. It's a two-way street. So when we use these terms that we're about to use, they are much, we'll talk about lights and vessels, right? Lights are all over the place. These are not flashlights. These are not firelights. These are energies, lights. And vessels are containers. So the lights and the vessel move, just like the fire. The light of the fire necessitates a spark and a piece of wood. So there needs to be an adhesion of the energy and the matter. Matter and energy are interwoven with each other. And matter and energy, as we know in plain simple science, are interchangeable. And there's an intimate relationship between the two. Sometimes light is described as a wave. Sometimes it's described as a particle. Sometimes godliness is described in terms of the or, Ein Sof, the light. And sometimes godliness is described in terms of the vessels which contain the light. And light and vessels, fire and wood, need to go together in order for there to be something which has godliness and life within it. So all of that I just said is just to understand that everything we're about to say, try to take it simply, and at the same time try to, and the Alter Rebbe will help us with this, try to take it and internalize what it means to ourselves. So Shlomo HaMelech openly says in Mishlei, in his book, which is called Mishlei, Mashalim Metaphors, that the following, that we understand everything that we're going to say in terms of human terms, we're going to understand the Inyan HaSpiros, in the Inyan of the Spiros. So for example, we'll just give one and then we'll move on. We have God invests himself first in the sphere of Chokhmah. It says, Chokhmah me'ayin timotzeh. Chokhmah comes from the ayin, the nothing, without going into what the nothing is. But the ayin is God himself invests himself in the sphere called Chokhmah. Godliness invests itself in us. Our holy soul, our nefesh elokis, is invested in us through the so-called, and this is metaphorical, opening in our brain called Chokhmah. That's the Chabad, Chokhmah Bina Das. Chokhmah is the open channel for Elokus, for godliness. So just as God invests himself in the world through Spheros, the first sphere being Chokhmah, so godliness is invested in us through the aspect of our brain called Chokhmah. Just an example. We'll go on. So understand the inyan of the Sephiros, the containers, and the union of lights and vessels, which is called Spheros. The following is known Be'ores. The following is known in the earth. In other words, people who have been learning and understand this stuff know the stuff that's following. And it's expressed, Mipi Kadusha Elyon, from the holy ones. These are the holy ones, the supernal holy ones, the ones who are masters of the Kabbalah and the inner dimensions of the Torah. Nishmasam Elyon, their holy souls. So this is going to explain what they have explained in order, Lekadav Katsas El Haseichel, in order to bring a little bit to our own understanding, Ma'adikasiv, that which is written, it's written in the Gemara Bruchas, on the pasuk Umabasori Echa Elakah, as I said, the pasuk from Job, Elul, that from one's flesh one can see godliness. As I said at the beginning, from understanding how we're built, we can understand how Hashem builds. To understand how we operate will give us at least an approximate understanding of how Hashem operates. And back to what I said at the beginning, the Alter Rebbe writes in the Geras HaKodesh that this knowledge, when internalized, is important to, and it's critical to developing our consummate love and fear of Hashem. When Job said, "From my flesh I see godliness," his intention, the intention of that is Lahavan katzatz elokusa yizbarach, to understand a little bit about godliness, the blessed godliness, minefesh hamulubeshes bebasa ha'odam, from looking at godliness through the parable, or the mushal, better, of the soul. Just like the soul enlivens the body. This is actually, I'm saying in English, a mimer of a saying of our sages. Just like the soul invests itself in the body, so God invests himself in the world. So we're likening godliness to the power of the godly soul within us. So we're going to stand a little bit of godliness, minefesh, from the soul, hamlubeshes bebasar adam, which is enclosed in the flesh of a person. And we'll understand this according to the saying of our sages. Excuse me. This is, I'm looking at my own footnotes. This is the saying from Gemara Brachas. On the pasuk, Borchi Nafshi, right? Borchi Nafshi is from Tillim. Borchi Nafshi is Hashem. My soul blesses Hashem, right? So there's a relationship between the soul and God himself. And the sages have said on this, what's the relationship? Ma HaKodesh Baruch Hu v'chulu. And the end of it is, Ma HaKodesh Baruch Hu Malus HaOlam, just in the same way that Hashem fills the world, so the neshama fills the body. Afa neshama, so the neshama fills the body. And we'll understand this, the Alpi Maimer HaZohar, according to the saying of the Zohar, on the pasuk, V'yipach ba'apov nishmas chayim. When the human was created, it was created in a way that Hashem sketched out the form in the earth, and then blew, this is the quote here, blew into its nostrils a living soul. So we are connected breath to breath, mouth to mouth, spirit to spirit with God himself. That's who we are. That's our nature in a consummate manner. And the Zohar says on this, blew. Why is the word blew? That he blew it into us. The Zohar says, man de nafach, one who blows, from his depths he blows. So not only are we a walking, talking embodiment of the Spirit of God, we're a walking, talking embodiment of the innermost parts of God. The innermost depth, not parts, the innermost depth of God. Because when he could have said, he didn't speak us into existence. He blew us into soulful existence. And that's because when one blows, the Zohar says, one blows from one's inner depths. Even the soul in this lowly world of Asiya, who ba, it comes, now here comes another metaphor, very important metaphor, zivug, from the intimate relationship, male and female relationship of Zachar and Nekeva, of male and female. Now, in the Sfiros, we have Chabad, the intellect, and then we have the 7 midos. 6 of those 7 midos are drawn down into the 7th, which is Malchus. So the 6 midos are called Zachar, Zah, because they're emitting and drawing and bringing down and residing in a container, and the container is the feminine. So the mashpia, that pushing out from Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, culminating in Yesod, enters into Malchus. So this is Yichud Zun, the unity of the masculine and the feminine, which occurs obviously in the human development. And the human development is a mushal, back to the whole mushal, the way God envelops himself and into worlds. He emits, that's the masculine, he emits a certain energy, and that energy comes into a container, which is called Malchus, versus called Malchus of Ein Sof, and then there are other instantiations of Malchus and Malchus of Atzilus, and it's repeated. It goes on through that same order, an emission into Malchus, repeated over and over again, and every world is created that way, and so are we. Yichud Zun. And when we get down into the world of Asiya, he says every soul, it comes from this this relationship of masculine and feminine in the world of Asiya, which is the lower world, and above in the upper worlds as well, of course. The Hamoichin Shelahem, and the brains of them. Now, we talked about the Midos, right? The masculinity of the Midos as Mashpia, the femininity of the Midah of Malchus as receiver. All of that comes from the head, the Rosh, Chabad. Chabad is the control center, but it's the original center where all the flow is going to come through the Midos. And let's talk about, out of just one, all we've been talking about for the last number of weeks, the Midah of God's Chesed, right? And we've made the anthropomorphic connections. Just as when we do Chesed, we give to something that's in need. So that's a metaphor for God. God himself gives to the worlds. The worlds are something that have nothing without him. There's nothing that exists, and there's nothing that's alive without him. So that's called Chasdei Hashem. We metaphorically call it God's kindness, because we can understand that. Because we can understand our own kindness, giving to someone in need. We can use that to understand how God operates. So that's, again, the Midos, the way we're built is echo the way he's built. And that he has made it so that the way he is constructed is echoed in us. So we have this constant, intimate, one-to-one relationship with him. So the Midos, as we were just talking about, where do they come from? They're born from Chabad, which is the Bechinas HaChaya of the Neshama, the Zun, which is the life force, and it's the soul of the Midos. Shehein hein achorayim, the Kalim, the Zun. So these lights which come from Chochmah are the achorayim. They're the outside, or the backside, the outside of the Kalim. So we have now introduced a new concept, but it's the same idea, lights and vessels. And there are 6 Midos coming into Malchus. They are all called, including Malchus, they're called Spheros, right? But the word Sphera, there are many interpretations of the word Sphera, multiple, but the one we'll focus on here, Sphera means to shine, like Saphir. This is brought in the Maimon of the Alter Rebbe in Sfiras HaOmer, when we call it counting, right? Sphera to count. But he points out that Sphera is Lashon Sapir, or Saphir, which is the sapphire jewel. It shines. It's the physicality of it would be nothing without the fact that there's something almost miraculous going on, that when you cut facets in it, it illuminates and it shines almost from within. And this is a construct which exists in all of creation. Nothing exists without the union of light, of lights, oros, and kalim, lights and vessels. The lights on their own need a resting place where they can be actuated, which is the kalim. So oros for kalim, lights and vessels, are the underlying nature of everything. Energy and matter, wave and particle and wave, all those, the scientific interpretations of them, it's all the same. There's nothing that can exist. Matter can't exist on its own. And when you drill down into matter, you're going to find wave frequencies. So you have light and vessel, and this is the formula, this is a metaphor for everything that exists. So we have the kalim, we have the lights and the vessels of Zun, which is the Midos and Malchus, of Atzilus. That's the first word. The emanation is a word that applies to light, right? Light emanates. But a light that emanates can't be tangibilized without it coming into something which the Kabbalists call a vessel. There has to be a container for it. Back to the mashal I used at the beginning. You can't have a fire, which is light, without the wood. There needs to be a fuel and an energy. And these two things have to go together. They only have to go together because that's the way God made them. Everything works like this, lights and vessels. And in worlds, the first world is called Atzilus. It's called emanation because it doesn't feel itself to be separate from Hashem. It's aware of its connection. It's aware of the fact that it's being emanated from the energetic of God himself. It's called the world of Atzilus. As he says, Shehem Elokus Mamish. The worlds in Atzilus are Mamish, godliness. Godliness, the light of God, the Or Ein Sof, in the vessels, in the Kalim of Atzilus. But as the Zohar says that in Atzilus, the lights and the vessels are one, meaning that the Kalim, the things that exist, the substantial, so to speak, things that exist in that world, always feel the presence of God within them. This object and presence of God being unified extends down, down, down into every single thing. However, as we go down, down, down in worlds, the presence of God is more obfuscated because of what's called the tzimtzum, but it's always there. Nothing can exist without the unification of, metaphorically, light and vessels. Mamish. And the world in Atzilus, they feel that. They feel the light in the vessels, in their vessels, Shebasechem, which is in them. Because within them, there is Meir, there shines the Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Or, the light, the energy, the frequency of light, which gives rise to them, is evident to them in the world of Atzilus. Melubish, Meganis B'Chochma Atzilus, that light, that energy, which is enclosed and concealed in Chochma, the brain power of Atzilus. Because, as the Zohar says, the Ihu B'Garmehi Chad. In Atzilus, he and the Kalim, that's called the Garmehu, he and his Kalim are one, the Atzilus, in the world of Atzilus. V'alkein, and therefore, Gam b'neshomas ha'odam, since this paradigm is active everywhere, from the highest of all worlds to the smallest subatomic particle, this, which we're speaking about, is what's going on. So also, Gam b'neshomas ha'odam, down here, when it comes to the soul of a person, each and every one of us, Meir Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu Melubish B'Ganos Be'or HaChochma Sheba. There irradiates, there shines the light of the Infinite One, may he be blessed. It's enclosed and hidden in the light of our Chochma, the Chochma of our soul, that sphere of Chochma in our soul. The Hachyu is Odom, and that's what gives life. That's what in life, the life force is that energy, the Or. But the life force, the force needs something to be acted upon, that it acts upon, which is the vessel. So this is how we live. We live, right? We have a pulse. The awareness that we have a pulse is through looking at the pulsation of some kind of matter. But the pulsing of it is due to the energy which is being put into it. So even the smallest pulse, you feel your pulse on your wrist, is an example of this, light and vessel, flesh and spirit coming together. And that spirit, which ultimately is the Or Ein Sof, is what enlivens, l'hachiyos es ha'odam, enlivens a person, and from that enlivening force, yochel ha'odam lahavin katzatz b'sfiras. And laughing because with that he's given us this force from his Chochma. Remember, Chochma has a quality. It's not just a beam. It has a certain quality different from Bina. We call it wisdom, right? And through that wisdom, a person is able to understand a little bit about the Spiros Elyonis, the supernal Spiros. Shekulen me'iris b'nishmos soy, because all of the supernal, this is a mouthful here, all of the Spiros that exist in, let's take the world of Atzilus, where is recognized the union of flesh and matter, of matter and energy, light and vessels. This is propelled down and perpetuated downward into ourselves. And so every soul, all of them, every soul, which is every one of us, is enlivened and shines, radiates from that energy which is in our soul of every one of us, the godliness within, the godliness of the spirit within the flesh. And that's today's Tanya. This is the intro to this letter, which goes on. for a few days. All right. Questions? You know, silence is golden, they say, but oftentimes silence means, what? I didn't understand anything. So I don't know how to take it bothers me because I never know how to take the silence.
Like,
Go ahead.
We have a really big responsibility.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
We have a huge responsibility and we have a huge capability. He wouldn't give us the responsibility if he didn't give us the capability. The capability is we have the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, invested within us.
We have to raise ourselves up to meet that.
Absolutely. Hayanka, your hands up.
Yeah. Good morning.
Hi.
So Hashem blows our neshama into us. So is the neshama the keli for his infinite light, which is also put into our goof?
No, the neshama, the soul is the energetic, the energy blown into the vessel, which is the body.
The soul is the part of the God. The body is just a body. It's not really God. It's God. Everything is God. The same way the stone is God. Our body's the stone. But the soul is the part that's still God.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful, that's echoed in it. It's a chelek elokam, right? The soul is called, we're familiar with this, I think. A lot of people go around saying it. That's a chelek elokam.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, thank you.
But you talked about the two types of Chachma.
I did.
The Chachma from Hashem coming into our Chachma, right? Did I misunderstand that?
No, you understood it. Our Chachma is a reflection of his Chachma. Everything that exists reflects him in some way or other. Reflects. Is a mushal for him. Because everything, just as the key thing is that Maimar Chazal that we said, just as Hashem enlivens the worlds are objects, let's call them objects, containers, but they have life, right? The sun shines, the planets move, right? So they're flesh and spirit. And just as he enlivens the world, just as Hashem enlivens the world with this union of spirit, matter, and spirit, so the neshama enlivens the body. The neshama is the spirit, the spiritual, the godly ultimately, and the body is the matter. Does that help?
Yeah, just something triggered me earlier on, and I can't quite conceptualize it. Because I feel like, our neshama is a part of Hashem, but it's also discrete from Hashem, right?
Yeah, that's what, as soon as you say part, you're describing, which is twofold. It's his, it belongs to him, but at the same time, it's just something of him. It's not his essence.
Can a neshama ever stop to exist? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, neshamas never. Neshamas don't stop to exist.
There's no way it can ever stop.
No, because it's a part of God. If God stopped, the neshama would stop. But God doesn't stop.
Right.
God's the only thing that never had a beginning, and therefore never has an end. He's the only thing. Is the kadman shel kol hakadmoni, the Rambam calls it, the primordial of all primordials. A primordial means nothing brought him about, and therefore, by definition, he's always about.
But Chassidus does say that hamachzik b'ktato machzik b'kulo, that, right? That if you hold on to a chelek eloka, then you're basically all of eloka, and it is essence. It is Hashem's essence. You are Hashem's essence.
You're holding. Say the expression again. Take every word.
Hamachzik b'ktato machzik b'kulo.
Yeah, like when you take, yes, because God, the allness of God is in everything. The allness of God is in everything.
Right, but also that
it's impossible.
Is eternal.
It means he has no parts. Therefore, if you grasp him in any way, you're grasping him. Yes.
And it is Atma. So we're
Yeah, Atzmus is in everything.
But we are, it's in our neshama too. We are.
It's in everything. It's in a piece of dirt. Of course, it's in our neshama. It's in everything.
No, but it's more than like the way it comes down and mishtalshel into dirt. It's part of our neshama, as in Hashem's essence. Like Hashem consulted us before creating the world, meaning before Seder Hishtalshelus.
Yes.
But
you want to know something? Everything exists before Seder Hishtalshelus.
No, the Jewish neshama specifically.
I know, but everything does. Everything exists in his kadmon, in his primordialness, but everything comes out from that primordialness in different ways.
I don't think you could say that everything, because I learned in.
Well, I'm not saying that. That was Chassidus with us. Everything.
I learned a Chassidus that was Nishmas Yisrael. It's Knesset Yisrael. It said this.
Knesset Yisrael. Ola b'machshavtoi. Come on. Let's be clear on the words. Ola b'machshavtoi rose up in his thought.
No, the Rebbe says Nimlach b'nishmos tzadikim. He asked the tzadikim before creating the world.
Yes, right. He thought, and his thought created something, and then he consulted with them. Nishmos and Israel ola b'machshavtoi. That's the expression. And machshavtoi.
Nimlach b'nishmos tzadikim. The Hashem.
We can't belabor this. You have to somehow get, and it's something to get, that Atzmus is in everything, and at the same time, everything is not the same. And therefore, Neshamas Yisrael have milas, have virtues, which is not in a piece of dirt.
It's not just that they have milas; it's that they're chelek elokam imal mamash, and they're part of Atzmos, that before the Seder Hishtalshelus. And you can't say that the same thing about dirt.
You don't use that expression. It's a part of God Himself. No, because we want to extol and make different. There's certainly differences in every. Where do those differences come from?
I just read it in Dvar Malchus.
The differences come from where they're sourced, and God, and the source of a neshama is much deeper than the source of a grain of sand. There's no question about that. So I don't know what you're arguing about, really.
That there's a difference between. It's not just the source. It's that the neshama is atzmos. Is atzmos. That's what the Rebbe points out.
Let me hear the language of the Rebbe.
I'll find it. I have to open the book and find it.
And we'd like to hear that. Neshama is Atzmos.
Yes. Neshama is Atzmos, but the Yisrael is Atzmos.
You don't know, because you don't know that.
I do know, but I'll find it. I'm saying the word Neshama, that's the only thing I don't know, if Neshama is Atzmos. But yeah.
What are you trying to demonstrate? That our soul is God?
I don't know if it necessarily our soul, maybe it's our body is God. I don't know, but we are God. So I have to find it. We are God. That's what you're trying to demonstrate? I'll show you from Dvar Malchus. I'm not saying it from my own. Why would I say such a thing? I'll show you the Rebbe.
Then give us the quotes from the Rebbe.
Find it.
I want to hear a quote from the Rebbe, and I'll be happy to learn.
I'll take a picture of it.
That says that we are God.
I'll take a picture of it.
Okay. We are God. Okay.
Can I add a refuah because I woke up late?
What's that?
I was up from tax season, so I woke up late, so I didn't get in time for the refuahs. So I didn't know if I could add one.
Of course, do it.
Megumi Basiro.
Refuah shlema b'kol mamish. We'll continue.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. So you're talking about the quote from Eov, and from my flesh shall I behold God. Yes. And you were saying our flesh gives us an approximation of how Hashem works, his intentions, his blessed godliness, and how it enlivens the body. And God invests this goodness and this life into the world. So when we experience illness and chaos in our lives, you know what? Like how I don't understand like how I guess we're separated from God somehow when we're experiencing limitations and illness.
It's a great question. Great question. Nothing can be ever separated from God, and therefore, how can evil, or what appears to be evil, have any existence, which is, in a sense, opposite what we're saying. So on this, you have to kind of fall back on that Hashem, Zeh la'uma zeh osa Elokim. That's the phrase. This opposite this Hashem created. Just as he created light, he created darkness. Just as he created holiness, he created the opposite of holiness. But they're all his creations. In other words, even in the darkness, you know, a metaphor that we happen to have today, the science that we have today is helping us very much. We have a metaphor called dark matter. Dark matter. Mm-hmm. And the way the scientists explain it, it's light that has collapsed into such a state of denseness that it can't emit. And because it can't emit, it appears to be dark. That's a lovely metaphor for the Sitra Achra. The other, it's godliness that's condensed itself into such a manner that it appears to be the opposite of light. But it's all light. Therefore, it's all God, even the dark.
What was that expression you said? This opposite this?
Yeah, zela umazeh osa Elokim. I don't remember, maybe someone on the call does, where that comes from. Zela umazeh, this opposite this, osa Elokim, God makes. And it's a pasuk. And the word Elokim is very telling, because where we have different names of God, like Havaya and Elokim. Elokim is a name of God which connotes and shows on the tzimtzum, the contraction, the concealment. So in the things that you've described, godliness in what we call evil, sickness, etc., trouble, God has to be there because nothing can exist without him, but he's existing in a state of concealment. And we have as Elisheva said earlier, the burden as well as the capability of breaking through that. That's called healing. And that's also called shuva, because when you turn the darkness inside out, when you take and this is also metaphorical in today's science, which says, the scientists say, that the light which is compressed into that dark matter, compressed is a good word, because if something is compressed, when you take off the shell, it pops out. That light is going to be even more intense. And that's a wonderful metaphor for the advantage of light which comes from darkness, right? That's an expression, the advantage of light which comes from darkness. So he created light, he created dark. He created health, and he creates the opposite. Mysterious, huh?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I also heard something by Sarah D. Schneider about symptoms of sickness are a way for Hashem to kind of push a person to feel that.
Absolutely.
Like, so that, so like spiritually and physically that these are symptoms, and that's just like a kindness.
Exactly. Chaste Hashem la'olam. It's always kindness. It's just sometimes it's open kindness, and sometimes it's a kindness that we have to open.
I posted the source. I posted the sources. It's on the chat.
Where the Rebbe says that we're God?
Yes, where the Rebbe says that we're God.
Okay. We'll take a look.
Thank you.
All right. Shikoyach. We'll see you tomorrow.